Today, we are talking about boundaries, but not just saying no to people, but boundaries around the stories that we tell ourselves, boundaries around receiving support, and boundaries around access to our time and expertise. Because these three areas I've noticed have been tested recently in my own life and business. And so I'm here to share what's been going on there and what I've learned about boundaries through these things because these boundaries inevitably protect our energy, our work, our relationships, and allow us to really move through life and business in a more easy, fluid way. Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I am your host, Samantha Fackler, business mentor and brand strategist. This show is about what it takes to build something in public. A business, a body of work, a brand, or a creative project so that you reach the right people. After 14 years in brand and marketing, I've seen so much confusing advice out there that tells you either need systems and rigid frameworks or intuition and manifestation vibes. And from my experience working with over 100 companies and even more clients, I find that growth is somewhere in the middle. So here we talk about the real choices of creating, showing up, and attracting the people that your work is meant for. Right now, I am very pregnant while running my company, so that journey will probably make its way into the show too. I'm glad you're here. Let's get into it. If you're stuck on something in your business, a marketing question, a messy offer, or you just need someone to help you think clearly, then a deep dive coaching session is for you. It's a one-time 60-minute call where you and I get to the root of what is not working and map out exactly what you need to do next. This is your chance to get the perspective of someone outside of your business who can see the whole system a bit more clearly. So if you'd like to book one of those with me, there are just a few open this month, and the link is in the show notes. The first boundary I want to talk about is the boundary around fear and old stories. So, oftentimes when we talk about boundaries, we kind of imagine this wall between other people and us. But this boundary is actually within ourselves. So, we have a lot of stories that run underneath the hood, and they often dictate our actions, decisions, the way that we show up and behave. But when we look at what is happening, then we can draw new boundaries around those old stories and fears. So, for example, I am marching towards my maternity leave. And because of that, I have a lot of clients naturally wrapping up their partnerships, their packages, and I'm not really accepting a lot of new clients for long term work because I have maternity leave approaching. But what this has done is that there has been a little bit of scarcity fear that has popped up, right? So for me, this looks like, oh man, what if I never sign another client? Or I come back from maternity leave and I make $0 and my business fails, right? These are just fears. And honestly, when I look at my business and other businesses that I've had, I know that I'm going to figure it out. But there's a difference between intellectually knowing I'm going to solve this, our body and our nervous system holding this old story that then kind of grips onto fear. And it's really difficult to let go of that. It's still going to show up in how we behave and the decisions that we make. So, how do we do this? Right. And what I've learned and continue to come back to is drawing a boundary around this story because we don't want to completely ignore the fear. We don't want to push it away. We want to look at it. And so for me, I looked at, okay, there is this fear around scarcity that's surfacing right now. What is the part of me that first experienced this? And so I went back to being a kid and having different experiences where this popped up. And I was able to sit with that. I was able to sit with that younger part of me and just in a soothing, compassionate way of really seeing her, of really seeing the situation. And then I don't say, okay, bye bye, I'm locking you in a closet forever. I just simply come back to the present. And I imagine that there's just kind of this protective wall around that inner part, keeping her soothed. And maybe this is some sort of internal maternal energy coming online because I'm pregnant, but it felt like I can take care of this part of me. And I can start to shift back into the belief that things are going to work out. And in fact, I can remember all of the experiences in the last few years and beyond where there's concrete evidence that I will figure this out. And when we pause, we notice the old stuff, we soothe it, and then we return to present reality. It's kind of playing with the boundary around this old story and fear that's really important and can actually help us start to move forward in a healthy way. Now, there's another boundary. The second one I want to talk about is receiving support. Because as a pregnant lady, I have needed a lot of support in ways that I did not expect. I actually, before getting pregnant, when I thought about being in this phase of life before baby comes, I thought, okay, when I'm pregnant, I'm going to lock it down. I'm going to do all this stuff because I'm going to have all the time before our first child enters the world. And then I got pregnant and realized my energy has its own agenda here. And I'm going to need to figure out how to move with this. And so part of that was, how do I receive support? Now, a lot of listeners, and this is me too, I am quite high functioning. I have different beliefs running the show of I can do it myself. I got this. I'm INDEPENDENT. Okay. And what I've realized is that even though I can do everything, that does not mean that I should. And so it's come up in little ways where, at the end of the workday, or maybe just at the end of a day where a lot of stuff is happening, I'm exhausted. My husband is so sweet and decides to make dinner. I enjoy dinner with him, and then I feel this guilt to help with dishes or to take them on because he did dinner. It's like this exchange in my head. And he's like, no, you don't have to do dishes. Let me get these tonight. You're exhausted. And he always reminds me, he's like, you're working 24/7. You're cooking up our daughter in your body. And it's still hard for me to receive that. And so it's been a practice with all these little things, whether it's dinner or receiving support in other ways, to accept that and to let go of the guilt or this feeling that I need to earn whatever that support is. Another way this showed up was choosing doula support. So luckily my insurance does cover doula support, but that doesn't mean that I necessarily need all the doula support. And if you're not familiar, doulas can help with prep before labor and delivery. They can actually be in the room with you during the birthing experience, or they can help by visiting the home after delivery. But just because I had access to these things didn't mean that I needed all of them. And so I really sat with my intuition and what I felt. And for me personally, I felt like I didn't actually want a doula there for labor and delivery. I wanted it to be my husband and I. I fully trust the hospital staff. I absolutely love my OB, everyone I've interacted with at that hospital, and I'm very grateful for that. But I did feel called to have doula support postpartum because my husband and I are moving through this for the first time together. We've never taken care of a newborn. I've never breastfed before. We're going to have a lot of questions. And so that support felt right. And so sometimes also it's not just interrupting support with this guilt that comes online, but it's also understanding, hey, what support can I allow to exist that feels right for me? And I think that these two experiences have helped me relax into support and receive it without guilt and understand that we are worthy of that. We are worthy of people helping us. We don't have to do it all alone. And in fact, we shouldn't. Now, the big piece of this episode is boundaries in business, and especially with access to our time and expertise. So, if you're a service provider like me, I am a coach, and I didn't just call myself a coach one day. I spent 14 years in brand and marketing. I became certified as a coach through not just any sort of willy-nilly online program, but I went to UC Berkeley, one of the most rigorous and prestigious coaching programs and certifications in the country. And I'm very proud of that training. I'm really proud of myself as a coach and my ability to guide people without telling them what to do. Because I think coaching has a dark side in the industry, and I like to stay on the light side that is steeped in integrity and ethics. And more than that, I've built a profitable business. I have a successful podcast. It continues to grow and hit its highest numbers month after month, right? And it's not just I can do this for me. It's like my clients come to me because I help them get those results too. So when people come to me and ask, "Hey, can we grab a coffee? I'm trying to brainstorm this thing and I love your thoughts." Well, that's what my business is built on. And for me, I put out so much free content. I have this podcast with almost 100 episodes. I've been doing it for years. There's so much that I've shared over time. If you go to my website under resources, it's on my services page. There are free trainings, there are free guides. There's so much that I've put out there that is uniquely built from me based on my experience and what I've seen work. So when someone asks me for my time, it's like, well, that's behind a paywall. That's the boundary, right? My time is very valuable. My time could be going to paying clients who know that I'm worth that. So even when I have people that I care about and who I do want to help and I would love to brainstorm those things with, when those people reach out, it's like, I actually don't want to get coffee, but if you want to book a call with me, I'd be more than happy to help you. If you want to join these spaces where I'm answering questions like that, I'd be more than happy to help you. So when those experiences happen, those asks happen, just because it's a casual ask does not mean the ask is casual. It can actually be just asking for your value and free stuff that you often charge for. So you need to understand what is that boundary. And I think when I was earlier in my business, I was much more willing to give even more free time and stuff away. But over time, I realized I get resentful after. And so for me, that's a boundary because I don't want to resent someone. When I get coffee with someone, I view that as a very casual, friendly interaction where we're not really talking about business. We're definitely not talking about coaching advice. It's not a question and answer thing between the two of us. That stuff is reserved. And so I had my boundaries tested 3 different times in this way in the last month. And it felt so powerful for me to respectfully and gently say, "Hey, I'd love to help you with this, but these are actually the best spaces for that." And then direct them to, booking a coaching call or joining a program where we're talking about what they asked for. The second time that this boundary was tested was actually within a program with a paid client. So the brand edit is my program that's all about understanding your identity, the way that you're showing up. How do you communicate it so it gets through to the right people and building your brand around that? And your brand is not just your logo, it's messaging, it's positioning, and it's the visual direction that's built on all of these juicy identity pieces. So when someone in that program in the last year had actually asked me for coaching that was way outside the scope, so giving feedback and really walking them through something that's not related to that stuff at all, but still within their business, I had to gently draw a line for them there too, right? And say, I'd love to help you with this, but since we're in the program, this is really the scope. And so that kind of falls outside the scope. And that is outlined in my contracts and my agreements so people understand the distinction too. The third time this boundary was tested was with more of a friend/acquaintance. And this is someone who did ask for coffee to catch up. And I thought, I'd love to. But I found when I showed up, she probably spent 60 to 75% of the time complaining about her business and not knowing what to do. And so I had to look at the boundary that I was coming up against because my natural instincts are to be like, have you thought of this? Or, knowing everything I know about you, have you tried this? Or asking certain questions to help her see things that she couldn't quite see. But all of that is coaching work. And even though my instinct is to do that, I had to understand, hey, this is not a coaching space. We're grabbing coffee. We're supposed to just be catching up on life. She's taking up a lot of space right now, and I'm going to listen and I'm going to give her my attention, but I don't need to solve her problems. I do not need to fix these things. And I'm going to draw a boundary with myself so that I do not enter coaching mode and I respect my own time and space and value in what I do for a living. And that was so powerful. And then I got to a point where I was like, I think I'm done with this conversation. And I did a little stretch and I, gently kind of made my way from that coffee. And I still have positive regards for her. But also, I think the more that I progressed into this pregnancy, the more I realized my capacity for small talk and for this kind of thing is just getting more and more limited. And I'm starting to say no to even more coffee dates, even with people who are acquaintances and in my network, because I just don't have the bandwidth for it. Right now, I'm focused on other things. I have other priorities. I'm making a baby. That's number one. So, to round this out, talking about boundaries, it's like sometimes the boundaries are within us or right around us, and we need to look at those ones. They're not just clear cut between us and other people all the time. It's, hey, what are the fears and stories running the show? And how can I both honor those, but also create space for me to start to rewire patterns and move forward in a different way, make different decisions, support my future self? And then what are the boundaries around relationships or accepting support, accepting the fact that we don't need to do it all? And sometimes those might be rooted in old stories, but sometimes it's just allowing us to pull down the walls a little bit and receive. And that's really hard to do for high functioning people like myself and probably a lot of listeners. And then third, which we hear about a lot in business, but what are the boundaries around free access to your time and energy when those are core things of how you make a living and what your business is run on? Right? Because you get to decide, okay, these are the things I'm giving away from free, but these are the things that have a ton of value that are built on all this work and stuff that I've done that are going to be behind a paywall of some sort. So, in essence, boundaries are not just about pushing people away, they are about staying close to ourselves. What is that inner experience happening? And then how can we fortify these boundaries both within us and outside of us to protect our energy and ultimately find more ease? So I hope this episode resonated with you. I would love to hear your thoughts, your questions. You can always DM me at samantha.fackler on Instagram. If you're new here, be sure to follow the show so you do not miss future conversations like this one. And finally, if you have 2 seconds, please leave a rating or review on the show. They seriously make my day, and I literally text my mom when I see new ones. So thank you for being here. I will catch you next time.